Welcome back to the Retail Initiative podcast. I am so excited for today's episode, and here is why. If you're watching on video, you might notice that the scenery behind me is different. In fact, it looks like it used to. I am back in my office. I have been working out of a co-working space, and today is my first day back, and I can't tell you how excited I am. Honestly, I've been thinking about this day for months. So a few months ago, and so I'm going to bring this around to some business lessons because I think this should be an encouraging episode. So a few months ago, we have found this like itty bitty pinhole leak under our kitchen sink, and it had dripped into the walls and gotten into the floors. And we have a plumber out one day, and the next day, half of our kitchen's ripped out. And at that point, like, we start the journey, and that was in January. I'm recording this at the beginning of June, and I've been out of my house since like February, living in my in-laws, who are amazing people, but it's still living with your in-laws, right? And we've been doing all this construction because what happens is you rip out half your kitchen because you have to, and then it's like, well, that's ripped out, so we might as well remodel. And then while we're doing that, we should do this. And while we're doing that, we should also do this. And here we are months and months later, finally moving back in, and hopefully can get back to some semblance of it being normal again, which I'm beyond excited about. But that's not the point of today's episode. I've been visiting the house a lot over the last few months, and we've been in the middle of construction, and it gets discouraging. When you're in the middle of construction, it is the most challenging thing in the world. Like, your house is dusty. Everything is messy. It doesn't look quite right. And you almost like want to correct your contractor constantly, but to a degree you have to trust the process because it's not finished yet. And it gets discouraging. And in the middle of that, here we are, we were in May, and we're at friends' homes, and I'm looking at what they have, and I'm then looking at my situation where I'm living with my in-laws, and I don't even really have a home anymore, and I'm comparing myself. I'm looking at their current situation against my current situation as though they're the same. Now, do we ever do this in business? Well, we are in that transition time, that construction time where we are building. Maybe we're building to starting our business, or maybe we are taking to the next level, and that requires some new infrastructure. That requires new strategies, and you could consider that like putting your business under construction. You're remodeling it. And we look at people that are so much further along than us, and we compare ourselves against that. And so to go back to talking about my friends' homes, here's what's wild about that is I live in Houston, Texas, and most of my friends' homes in my neighborhood flooded during Hurricane Harvey. And several years ago, they were in the middle of construction. They had homes just ripped apart due to the hurricane and the flooding that happened. And what am I doing? I'm comparing myself today against where they are today, and not really acknowledging, well, hey, like several years ago, they were in the exact same situation. Their homes were dusty and felt like a mess and never felt like they were going to get it back. And we have to acknowledge that. And so in business, and I think this is a lot of areas of life, what do we do? How do we treat things when we are in that season where it's under construction and it's challenging and we don't even see the end in sight, but we know that there is one. We know it, even if we don't feel it, we know that it's there. If you're in business and you're in that construction phase or that remodeling phase, and I don't mean of your physical building, maybe, but that's not exactly what I'm talking about. If you're in that phase, how do we treat things? And so there are 4 things that I want to encourage if you're in that and you're tempted to look around and compare yourself against everyone else. So number 1, remember your why. Why are you doing this? Why did you start a business? There are things that maybe were secondary goals, like the freedom that comes with it, or maybe it was money, whatever those things might be. But what's your deeper reason for starting what you do? Is it the impact that you could make on your customer? Is it the impact that it can make on your family? Is this a lifelong dream? Write down that why. Write down the vision for where you're wanting to take it. Because those things, when days are challenging, when seasons are challenging, when months don't produce what they think. If we don't remember why we're in it, it is so hard. It is so hard to dig down into an empty bucket and pull out strength if we don't have, hey, I'm in this for a reason. A lot of times we have to have like that outside reason to encourage us to get back in it, put in the work, put in the time, and stay consistent, which without that why, it's so hard. Next, and this is a bit of a concept from Dan Sullivan. Focus on the gain, not the gap. In his book, The Gap and the Gain, which is a phenomenal book, he talks about these two ways that we judge ourselves. There is the gap, and then there is the gain. The gap is when you look ahead at who you want to be, where you want to be, and you measure yourself against that. Here's where I am, and here's where I want to be, and look at how different those are. I am nowhere near where I should be. I'm nowhere near where I want to be, and therefore I'm not blank. And obviously that probably isn't something positive. Instead, what we look at is the gain. We look back at where we were, and we can say, like, but look how far I've come. Look how much further along I am than I was then. I sometimes don't feel like I'm the business owner that I want to be. But I look back at where I was 4 years ago. Gosh, 4 years ago, I was the worst boss in the world. Like, I could not manage a team to save my life. And here we are now, and I have a team with really low turnover and a culture that is unbelievable. And I couldn't have done that several years ago. And that's something that I have today. And I can, instead of comparing myself against these leaders that I wish I was like, I can compare myself against where I was and recognize that progress. It doesn't mean that I don't want to continue to grow, but it does mean that I can be grateful for how far I have come, or the maturity that I have as a business owner. I remember how I used to freak out about everything. You name it, I would spaz out all the time. And now I have a much more level head about situations. Things don't keep me up at night like they used to. In the past, if I got an email on Friday and it was even slightly negative, like that ruined my weekend. And it doesn't mean that I don't take some of those things seriously, but I've learned to say, like, hey, that just is what it is. And my worry about it right now isn't going to make it better. And I can focus on my family. Those are areas where I have gained. So for you, what would it look like for you to focus on how far you've come rather than focusing on how much more you have to go? And weirdly, when doing that, you'll see that progress becomes easier to make. Progress becomes easier to make. There's a reason why Dave Ramsey, despite how much I honestly can't stand him, that's the hill I'll die on. I'm just letting you know right now. There's a reason why Dave Ramsey has you pay off a credit card, despite it doesn't matter what the interest rate are or whatever. He wants you to start with your smallest one because he wants that win. It lets you see a gain. It lets you see, hey, I've accomplished something, and there's a intrinsic motivation when we have that. Anyway, so back to that. Again, don't love Dave Ramsey. Is what it is. If you do, that's good for you, but not a fan here. All right, next, rest. Rest. This one is hard when you're in the middle. When you're in the middle of chaos and your business is not where you want it to be, your life's not where you want it to be, a lot of times we just want to grind. We just want to push on and keep going and going and going, when what we need to do, what we are supposed to be doing there, is letting ourselves rest and recuperate. The thing that you are going to need to bring to your business, what you're going to need to do in order for your business to succeed, is be able to think of strategies, be able to think creatively about what's going to get to the next level. And if your brain is not rested, and this is short-term rest like sleep and taking days off, and even long-term rest, giving yourself several days to pull away and let your brain focus on other things. If we can't do that, you will not only burn out, but you will not be able to come up with what you need to come up with to get out of where you are. It's that fascinating idea that to speed up, you slow down. And a lot of us, we think we can't take a vacation. We're like, I can't. Like, everything is going to fall apart. It won't. And I know that seems absolutely crazy, but a fascinating thing here. Lin-Manuel Miranda, who songwriter, he wrote the Hamilton soundtrack, the Moana soundtrack, and Kanto, so much, and his songs are unbelievable. He came up for the idea for Hamilton while at the pool on vacation. Our brain does this thing where it's processing and it's working through things behind the scenes while we're resting. This is why you get really good ideas while you're in the shower or while you're walking, is our brain is connecting things when we're not even trying to. And when we give ourselves time to rest, it lets us do that. So that's point number 3, is let yourself rest. When you're in the middle of the chaos, slow down and rest. So number 1, remember your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Number 2, focus on the gain and how far you've made it rather than the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Number 3, let yourself stop and rest. And my last one is get help. A lot of times we think that we have to just figure everything out on our own. But really what we can do is get help in the areas where we need help. Sure, you probably could figure it out, but how long is it going to take for you to do that? Are you going to, try this and this and this, and 2 years later have an answer when there can be a proven process that works? Maybe this is your inventory and you need to connect with like Management One and get some of that under control. Maybe it's your e-commerce strategy and you need to work with someone like us at Capital Commerce to get a proven process in place to grow online. Maybe it's your team management and you need a coach to help you learn and grow. And maybe it's not even coaches. Maybe we just need to read books and take courses and those kind of things. But ultimately, get help in moving in the direction you want to go in from people who have done that before. So that's my last thing. I know that this episode is a little all over the place, but I hope that you are leaving encouraged. If you're in the middle right now, if you're in the middle of building and construction and you're looking at people further along than you and you're wanting to compare yourself, know that you're not alone. Know that everyone has been there and there is an end. And you can come out of this with a business that fuels your life in the way that you want it. And it's not always going to be exactly like it is right now. So I hope this is encouraging for you. I can't wait to see you next time.